I mean, literally, it's 45 minutes after winning his first national championship, and all he could think about was, "Are you two coming back?" And I need a decision now. It's basically what it was.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. Thanks for being here. All of you that are coming to us from wherever it is you're coming to us from, we appreciate you. And we will continue to dive into some great conversations here every single week of the college football season. We're going to do that again today with Matt Mauck, former LSU Tiger, national championship winning quarterback, Nick Saban's first national championship winning quarterback. And boy, does he have some stories. Sounds like the Nick Saban that he played for and the Nick Saban that I played for, very, very similar. The pre-player era Nick Saban, a lot of similarities. So we have some stories, bounces a couple things off of each other. He's from Indiana. So going and playing in the Southeastern Conference, what was that like? He originally played baseball before he went and played in the college football world. So we asked him about that. So you're going to enjoy this conversation, I assure you. And because why not? Let's just dabble just a hair. We want to dabble on some season win totals. We're not going to go deep in the weeds and start going, line by line, this game. I just want to, there's a couple big takeaways that I've noticed here with where Vegas is kind of handicapping the college football season. So I'll give you those takeaways here in just a little bit. Let's kick things off with the conversation with national championship winning quarterback, Matt Mauck. Well, he won a national championship at LSU as the quarterback. Nick Saban's first national championship. That was in 2003. He's Matt Mauck, and he's kind enough to join us here on Always College Football. Matt, now you and I have the unique experience of having played for Coach and having won a title. I want to know how much he changed from 2003 to 2009. So I'll give you the floor. What was that first interaction with Coach Saban like?
Well, I knew Coach Saban prior to that. So I actually came out of high school in '97 when he was at Michigan State, signed with him there, and then played baseball. So, as you know, when he's recruited, it's amazing sometimes. You're like, how's he such a good recruiter? Because he's not much different in the house than he is on interviews or anything else. He's pretty bland. He doesn't really say much, but he's very good at finding out, I think, the key. Is it education? Is it access to the parents coming into the locker room, or just whatever it is that he finds is important to those parents? He kind of hammers that home. So I loved how serious he was, honestly, just because he seemed like he had all his ducks in a row, knew what he was talking about, everything like that. But then I when I left for baseball and I didn't sign with Michigan State, the thing that I loved was I expected, I was nervous about that call. I thought he would be upset or anything. And he goes, get it? He goes, you get to play a professional sport. That's pretty cool. We love multi-sport athletes. If it doesn't work out, you've always got a spot at Michigan State, which I thought that was pretty cool. Ended up that I played minor league baseball in Lansing, Michigan. Wasn't loving baseball, so I just called up his secretary and was like, hey, this is Matt Mauck. I don't know if he remembers me, but I'd love to come talk to Coach. Literally called me back in 10 minutes. He was like, yeah, come on over. Went over there, said, hey, I'm not loving baseball. Do you think you'd have a spot for me? He goes, anytime. He goes, you're welcome anytime. Next, I was then my first year in Lansing minor league baseball. Go the next year, and he leaves to go to LSU. I decide to retire, call him, and he says, yeah, you got a spot at LSU. So that part was great. Now, this is where you and I can compare notes, is once I got to Baton Rouge, thinking we've got this big history, he's going to be like, oh, Matt's my guy, all this stuff. I remember the first day I walked by him in the hallway, and I'm like, hey, Coach, what's up? Just walks right by me. Doesn't even say hi to me, like nothing. And I'm like, oh, all right. But, I think everybody's got kind of stories like that. I've heard he has mellowed out a little bit. But I guess, when you win 7 championships, you kind of chill out a little bit.
Yeah, I think most people would. I'm not sure he did. I think the players changed, which maybe forced him to change.
Yeah.
Very similar interaction. First time I ever saw him was in the hallway. And, he's not a big guy, so it's like, you're a big guy and he's intimidating. I mean, it's like, at that point, he had won games, but not a national championship. Like, he comes to Alabama, it's like, we're about to have a whole new world, now that this guy's in charge. And, he's not a big guy, but it's like, you could feel him coming. You don't want to look. You don't want to look at him. And you don't really want him to look at you. It's like that strange interaction where it feels like you're in slow motion and you just slowly past each other, and you don't want to make the first move. It's like a game of chicken. I don't want to acknowledge weakness by like saying, "Hey, coach." He has to say, "Hey, Greg," first, right? That was kind of the way it worked. But
you're worried he has like some psychological warfare. Like if you said hi first, he's gonna like remember that in 3 years. Like, yes. Remember when you were a wuss and you said hi to me before I said it to you? That's why you're not playing.
100%. It's going to find its way onto the practice field. Like, remember when you were super cordial? Yeah, we don't want cordial here. I'm something like that. But
I almost wanted to like beforehand, call like Lonnie Rosen, who was his psychologist. Hey, Lonnie, am I allowed to say hi to him in the hallway?
Yes.
How's this going to work out?
It's so funny, man. I mean, look, we both won national championships for him. And I've had so many people ask me, hey, what was he like before the title versus what he was like after the title? I was like, he was way, way more enjoyable before the title than he was after the title. After the title, it was like, oh, you guys think you're great. That's right. That's fine. You guys think, I mean, he was unbearable after the championship. How was he for y'all after you win the Natty and he's trying to make sure that pedal's still pressed because he didn't want complacency to factor in? How was he with you guys?
Yeah. Well, I had graduated, so I was I was done. I got drafted by the Broncos. I kind of, right away had left right afterwards. But I do remember, and this is a big deal, as in Louisiana had been 58 years. We have the game in the Superdome. I mean, it is like a Mardi Gras for a whole week in December for that, or January. So we get done, win the game. And as as the quarterback, we get all the glory. So we get to go up on stage, talk to all the analysts and all that stuff. I come in the locker room afterwards, and I'm cutting tape off my ankles, and the equipment guy comes in, taps me on the shoulder, and says, "Hey, Coach Saban wants to talk to you." So it's me and Michael Clayton, and I'm thinking he's just bringing us in to you guys were such great leaders. We just wanted to say thank you and how much I appreciated this year and all that stuff. So we walk in, he closes the door, and he's kind of halfway looking at us, taking his shoes off, and he goes, "Hey, I need to know what you guys are doing next year." And I'm like, "What?" Because I had a year. I had redshirted, but I had already graduated, so I had a year left. But I was 25 at the time. Michael Clayton was a junior. He had a year left. So both of us could have come back for that. But I was just, literally, it's 45 minutes after winning his first national championship, and all he could think about was, "Are you two coming back?" And I need a decision now. It's basically what it was.
That's incredible. What did you tell him? Coach, I'm 25. I'm going to go drink a legal alcoholic beverage on Bourbon Street and go celebrate. Like, I'll let you know tomorrow. Maybe even the next day. What was the reaction?
I just said, hey, Coach, I don't know yet. Just can I have a day to process? Would be great. Yeah. but honestly, I feel I would not surprise me if he had like two folders, and one was, when we won, what's my protocol? And if we lost, what's my protocol? That would be.
Had you lost, was there any possibility that would have maybe changed your decision?
I think so. Yeah, probably. So I had already been accepted to dental school. So, and honestly, for me, I don't know if you were like that, but yeah, you dream of going to the NFL, but it wasn't, I wasn't projected to be a first round pick or anything like that.
All right, NIL era is obviously all over college football now. It's very different from the way it used to be. You being the first national championship winning quarterback in over a half century, I would imagine you would have commanded a pretty decent paycheck had you decided to return in 2004 if the NIL era was in existence today. How do you think you would have done?
Well, the numbers I've heard, I may not have to be a dentist anymore. It would be nice.
I think
Yeah,
I think
I don't know. I mean, you hear some eye popping figures.
it's amazing though. Like I don't know how you feel. Like, okay, you played professional baseball, so you already had that professional experience before you got to play college sports. That's unique. To me, the professional experience kind of ruined the sport for me in a way. Like it became very much a job as opposed to a passion. And I'm curious if you at all, with your perspective, having played pro sports before you played college, how did you kind of differentiate the two?
I agree with you 1,000%. Professional sports is a wonderful thing, but it's a job. And you do it so much that it feels like a job. With that, it's an awesome job, but it's a job. Um, to me, what I loved about college football was it didn't feel like a job. It felt like a team and a community. And not only are you um, differentiating the players on the team, you're ostracizing yourself from the regular students. Yeah, this if you were think back, you're in college, or not even $1 million. If you gave me $10,000 in college, I would have felt like it was $1 million. At that point. So I think. I don't like what it's doing. Nobody, I think the one thing that I find interesting is I think the statistic is still something like the number of college football players that play in the NFL is still like 2 or 3%, something like that. Okay. So for 97% of the kids that play college football, your degree is way more valuable than anything else. And what's happening with the transfer portal is you can't tell me that even to go from Alabama to LSU, all those credits aren't going to transfer. And so you're ruining the opportunity for kids to be able to graduate and use the greatest asset, which is their college education, for later on in life. So I have a son who plays college football at Colorado School of Mines. It's a good football school, but not like a powerhouse. But all of his buddies that play there, they're from Texas, and they're like, "Man, I wish we could have got this stuff." And I said, "Guys, the most college guy that's Ohio State's going to earn $40,000, $50,000 for a couple of years." I said, "When you guys graduate, you're going to make $100,000, $200,000 for the rest of your lives. Like it's worth way more than the NIL money that you'd be getting."
The degree is so incredibly valuable, and I'm glad that you're bringing attention to it. You're a walking, living example of it with a successful dental practice there in Aurora, Colorado, doing an amazing job. And it's neat to know that your degree is being put to use, even though you played professionally in multiple sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not often.
The bottom line is I make more money as a dentist than I've ever made doing, two professional sports. So I don't know. I hate it. I don't mind getting paid, but it's got to be policed, and we have to continue to worry about the 97%, not about the 3%.
Yeah, and I think that there will at some point maybe be a shift back to that. I don't know, man. It doesn't feel likely, not at least at this point, not with where we've gone. Do want to kind of go back a little bit to your childhood. I saw that you went to high school in Jasper, Indiana. Is that accurate? I
That's
am
correct.
unfamiliar. I'm unfamiliar with Jasper, Indiana. I looked it up in the map. So not exactly SEC country, to say the least. You had already acknowledged that you were going to Michigan State. You were going to play for Nick Saban. You went to minor league baseball in Lansing. But when you got your first taste of the Southeastern Conference, what was that experience like?
Southern Indiana is not the hotbed for SEC quarterback recruiting with that. But I will say, when I was at LSU, from Southern Indiana, I was the starting quarterback at LSU. Rex Grossman is from Southern Indiana. He was the starting quarterback at Florida. And Jay Cutler is from Southern Indiana, and he was the starting quarterback at Vanderbilt. So maybe we were onto something. I think teams need to start scouring Southern Indiana for quarterbacks in the SEC. But I grew up Big Ten, thinking that was awesome, great football. And when I got to LSU, it's just different. I mean, you can, people from Ohio State, Michigan, you can say whatever you want. It's just different in the SEC. people just care more. Fans, it just, I mean, it truly, they, they die for LSU football. That's all they think about. That's all they care about. The same at Alabama, the same at South Carolina. It's just all that they just fans care more than anywhere else in the country.
It's remarkable. Was there a moment that when you got on campus, like I can remember mine was when I was on my official visit to Alabama. They asked a nice sophomore in college, maybe junior in college, a female that was a waitress at one of the restaurants that they were hosting us at. And they asked, "Hey, who's the governor of Alabama?" And she's like, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sorry. And then they asked, "Who's the starting quarterback?" I said, "Well, Brody Croyle." "Well, who's the backup quarterback?" "John Parker Wilson." So I was like, okay, hang on. That registers with me. That aligns with me. The importance of football, far more important than that of everything else that were going on campus at that time. So was there a moment where you were like, okay, yeah, this is different? What was that moment for you when you got to Baton Rouge?
Mine was we do a Friday walkthrough, and at the time we did it separate. We didn't do it in the stadium. We did it at the practice field, and so this was the first game, and so I'm getting on the bus from the practice field to come over to the stadium on the day before. Okay, and this was probably like at, I don't know, 3 o'clock or something like that, and all of a sudden there was just cars everywhere. You couldn't park, you couldn't do anything. There's people that were already starting to like get their smokers ready, doing all this stuff. And I said, what's going on? Is there a baseball game? What are they doing? They're like, oh no, it's for the game tomorrow. I said, it's like 24 hours away. They're like, oh yeah, there'll be people that sleep here tonight. And so that was when it kind of was like, oh, all right, this is kind of a big deal.
Sleep and pass out there. A lot of that as well.
Unintentional sleeping, but yeah.
Yes. And on occasion, now that you kind of look back and having done what you've accomplished professionally, not just playing, but also in your dental practice, how many of the lessons that you learned from playing for Coach Saban can you apply still today in your everyday life?
I think to Coach Saban's credit, he may be a curmudgeon. People don't get to know him and be buddy buddy with him. But to me, his focus and attention to detail is just something you're envious of. And I think when you talked about you guys won it, and the next year it was worse for you. There is no. I mean, you hear that saying: you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're never staying the same. He always gets better. I mean, always gets better. And I think you even see it now. Greg, what you do, you see him. He didn't look all that natural on TV when he first started, and he is really transformed, and he does great. I mean, he's really good. And I think it's because he probably knew, hey, I'm not great at this, and he did everything possible to make sure he was going to be good at it.
Yeah, it's really amazing how all that's kind of gone for him. Ironically, like you look at that staff, and I know you, and people always wonder like, what was it like working with Saban? I was like, I didn't talk to him unless there was a problem. Like he was coaching the defense at that point. Like he could care less about the offense. We just got in the way at practice.
You had the same thing when you got down. The offense had a great practice, and then he brings everybody up. He goes, "You guys suck. This is the worst practice ever." And you're like, "What?" I think we were 100. We were 1,000% and did 7-on-7. We scored 4 touchdowns in team. I know this is great.
Yeah, if the offense had a good day, like the practice was terrible. If the defense killed the offense, best practice ever. Yes, that's about right. Par for the course. But on that staff was a lot of really interesting personalities, including Derek Dooley, Will Muschamp, obviously Coach Saban, Jimbo Fisher. Let's start there. Your interactions with Jimbo as a quarterback, because we've seen him undress quarterbacks on the sideline. I'm sure you were on the receiving end once or twice.
I was. Jimbo and I actually, a great relationship. I think Jimbo appreciated. I think you would have thrived under Jimbo too. When you take things seriously and you do what you're supposed to do, he's still going to yell at you when you mess up. But what he can't stand is when people are unprepared. And the other part is when they can't. Jimbo's mind is like, he is flying around. You hear him talk. He's just so fast. Everything he does. So if people can't process information fast, he gets very frustrated. I remember Josh Booty was a perfect example. Josh looked like John Elway throwing the football. He was unbelievable. Okay. So, but Jimbo would just tear into Josh all the time. So we had this one where you're doing like an RPO, and you're supposed to read the defensive end, and if he crashes, you hold his stuff. So, and Josh wasn't the most fleet of foot. So one day at practice, he just pulls it and he runs right into the D end. And Jimbo's, oh my God, going crazy. He's like, Josh, what were you doing? And Josh just goes, I've just never pulled it. I just wanted to see what it was like. So stuff like that, Jimbo had zero tolerance for.
Yeah.
But he was great. Yeah, I think to Nick Saban's credit, I think a lot of those people. I mean, Will Muschamp was. I think he was a linebackers coach at Georgia for a little bit before he came, and Nick hired him as a D coordinator. Jimbo was at Cincinnati. I mean, he has a knack for understanding who knows football and who is going to resonate with the kids. And our staff, yeah, when I was there, you named a few, but we also had Kirby Smart, Mel Tucker, Freddie Kinchins was a GA, Adam Gase was a GA for us. I mean, it's a who's who of coaches that were on that 2003 staff.
Any other notable interactions with, did any of the coaches ever get into it? Because that happened from time to time. Like McElroy would be yelling at my OC, Jim McElroy. He'd yell at Kirby, and Kirby would yell at Mac, and it was like an all-out war at practice every day. Like offense, we did not like each other. And people think, oh, you guys are all great teammates. Like, no, I hated some of my defensive teammates during the week, and then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we were all best friends. But Monday through Thursday, like, it was not fun.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we actually had Rick Trickett was our O-line coach. And Rick Trickett, if people don't know Rick Trickett is, he is the loudest in your face, and he's smaller than Saban is. And he is, I'm talking, and to where when recruits came in, Nick would put him in the far end so the recruits couldn't hear him talking to the linemen. So we had all these guys in Will Muschamp, Jimbo. So I remember at my first year, I played baseball for 4 years. I was rusty. I hadn't really thrown the ball that much, and football, baseball is a little bit different. So we got Josh Booty, Rohan Davey, Craig Knoll, and myself. All four of us played in the NFL. All were on that staff together, or on the quarterbacks on that team my first year. So Rohan Davey gets hurt, Craig Knoll gets hurt. I become the backup within a week. Okay, literally, I just got on campus after playing minor league baseball for this. So I get in as the second team guy, and it's my first snap at college football ever. Okay. And so it's like a little screen pass. All right. So I get it, come back, I get rid of it as fast as I can, completion, and it just erupts. Like everyone is screaming, yelling, and I'm like turning around, like, what would I do wrong? Who's yelling at me? And no one's yelling at me, but everybody else is getting screamed at that's there. And it created this environment, though, that by game day, you're like, bring it. I've been yelled at so much the whole week that this is nothing for that.
It's so true. Like people always say that, and I think a lot of people use it as cliche. And I've been told that what y'all experienced at LSU, and granted, it's always that way. Like, oh, well, back when we did it, it was like, it was way harder back then. All right, fine. I get it. All right. So you were 4 years older than me, or 5 years older than me from an eligibility standpoint. Maybe it was harder, but probably not that different. But from way I heard it, y'all's conditioning program, Coach Moffitt, just what y'all had to go through in the summertime was like on another level. And then by the time you got to fall camp, you were already so angry all the time that like you just inflicted pain on each other because there was so much frustration that was built up in the summer. And then by the time you got through fall camp, it's like, oh gosh, these games against other teams with normal players is a breeze. So is that a fair?
I think you probably had it the same, because I think when the 2-time Nick Saban was the hardest is at LSU, because he wanted to prove what he had to do. And then I think he didn't have the success in Miami, came to Alabama. And honestly, both of those programs needed to be turned around from a cultural standpoint, from understanding how to work hard. So I would say it would probably be pretty similar. Our two experiences wouldn't be all that much different from that.
I can tell you that first year was hell on earth. I mean, it
Yeah.
was. It was
Yeah.
the
We
worst.
would do, and I, granted, I'm from Indiana. There's a little bit of humidity, but not like South Louisiana.
Yeah.
And we would go out and we would run at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock, and we did 24 110s. So you start at the back of the end zone, you run all the way to the end zone. You get, I think it was 15-second break, and then you run back, and you have to get it within 12 seconds or 13 seconds. And you did 24 of them. I mean, you look back on it and you're like, oh my God. And I remember after those practices and after like the 2-a-days, we would have guys going in the cold tub. And every day it was the trainer's job would pull 4 or 5 guys out because they would like full body cramp and couldn't get out of the cold tub afterward.
It's about right. I mean, it was like you could not wait. Honestly, and it got to the point where those workouts, we did 16 110s. It wasn't quite, I think it was a little more time between. That was our conditioning test. And it was like the 110 days were easy. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't wait for the 110 days. Like, I got a long stride. I'm a pretty tall guy. Like, I'm good on those. You get me in the stadium and we're doing stadiums and we're looping up and down Bryant-Denny. Yeah, those are the days that you want to die, because Fridays were the stadium days. We did squats, heavy squats on Friday. And then after you get done squatting, all right, boys, we're going to the stadium. Saddle up. We're going to go up 70 flights and then back down and up again 12 times. So your legs.
You guys had Cochran when you were there, Scott. Yeah. So Scott was an assistant when I was at LSU. So yeah, it's the same stuff. But I will tell you, I think the one thing I know Nick Saban was great about this. So I remember one day we were doing with a fourth quarter program where you just go from station to station, you get screamed at, and you're about to pass out every single time. But we were doing the 40s, and Nick Saban came. He was like, "All right," he goes, "Guys, this is like some new, kinesiology thing where you hold your finger like this, and when you run, it's going to make you like exert less energy or something." It was total BS, but the whole point was he was getting you to focus on something other than the pain they were putting you through. But it's just stuff like that I think if Nick Saban was going to be a head coach, he would be a psychologist, because he's excellent at playing with people's minds a little bit.
Well, Matt, this has been illuminating, man. Not many people have gone through what we've gone through with Coach and with chasing the title and doing things that we've done, man. I couldn't be happier for the success you've had practicing dentistry and doing what you're doing there in Colorado, man. Congratulations on all your success, and thanks again for the time.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Hey, congrats to you, man. I love listening to you. I think you do a really great job, so keep it up.
Thanks, Matty. Appreciate you, bud. Great visit there with Matt. Appreciate the time that he was able to give us some enlightening experiences with some of the things he brought to mind, man. Awesome stuff. Great visit. Win totals. Want to dive in here just a little bit. We're going to do this extensively throughout the season. Some call it off season. We don't think the season ever stops, so we'll just call it season. Season extended, if you will, here in the spring and the summer. We will continue to monitor these, but this is the first glance that we've had. I want to give some credit to FanDuel for being one of the first. They were able to throw this out there, give us some things, some fodder, some stuff to digest. And if there's a takeaway that I think we've noticed in college football, is that collectively, the best teams in the sport have lower expectations than they had just a couple years ago. I think it's reflected, and the parity in the sport has been reflected in the season win totals. And man, I remember there were years where you'd look at a team and their season win total would be 11.5 in some cases. Now, you had to be real bold to play those, but there'd be situations where that would actually go down. There would be situations where teams would maybe be at 11. Okay, but to have the top 1, 2, 3, or 4 teams in the country to all be sitting at 10.5 on the season win total is eye-opening. So what coaches have been telling us now for a while, hey, I don't have the competitive depth that I once had. Oh, the schedules now in the conference realignment era have become much more challenging. Oh, the parity and the bottom tier teams, the teams that are at the bottom of some of these conferences, they can now go up, rally, and knock off some contenders. The gap is just not as wide as it once was. It's reflected in these win totals. So the top 4 teams in the country, Ohio State, Oregon, Notre Dame, and Penn State, all 4 of those teams sit there with 10.5 as their season win total. And I gotta be honest, knowing what Ohio State lost, knowing what Oregon lost, knowing what Notre Dame lost, I like all 3 a lot going into next year, but I'm not feeling super confident about playing the over. I don't know if y'all are. Now, on Penn State, I think they got a lot of things to like about their roster. I think an overplay could be warranted in that scenario, but the rest of them, it's a tough one for me to totally get on board with. How about the teams that sit there at 9.5? There's a handful there. Texas, Tennessee, Georgia. 3 teams from the SEC. So you're telling me right now, this is based on Vegas. This is based on FanDuel. You're telling me there is a 50-50 chance, because when they set these season win totals, right, they're setting them hoping to get 50% of the money on the over, 50% of the money on the under. That means that FanDuel expects there's a 50-50 chance that the winner of the SEC has just 10 wins. Or maybe they have 9 wins. The winner of the SEC in the regular season. That's pretty crazy when you really think about it. So the 3 best teams, we've been saying for a while now, hey, Texas is a guarantee to make the college football playoff, right? That's according to most. I look at these preseason top 25s, these way too early top 25s. Universally, Texas is sitting there in the top 2 or 3. Doesn't really matter which publication. Everybody loves the Longhorns heading into this year. Well, Vegas, they got them sitting there at 9.5 wins. 9.5. Meaning that there's a 50-50 chance they have 9 wins or less, according to Vegas. 9 wins, if we learned anything last year, is not a guarantee to make the college football playoff. How about the teams that sit there at 8.5? Team that I love in LSU, they're sitting there 8.5. Alabama is 8.5. Michigan, after a super down year where they finished 7-5, they're sitting there at 8.5. Did they bounce back potentially? How about Indiana? Fresh off a playoff performance, they're sitting there at 8.5. Kind of lean towards the under. A lot of unanswered questions surrounding the Hoosiers there. Louisville's at 8.5, and Miami is at 8.5. I did skip one team so far that's expected to win 8.5 or more games according to Vegas. That's Clemson. Clemson sits right now at 9.5. I'm just going to tell you right now, their first game of the season's against LSU. Very difficult game in the non-conference. However, it is at home, and they have a lot of pieces back off of a playoff team from a year ago. The team that I feel best about right now going over their season win total is probably the Clemson Tigers. And they're sitting there at 9.5. Does it feel good? No. No, it doesn't feel great because there's not much margin above that. They have to go 10-2, 11-1, or 12-0 for that ticket to cash. But I like Clemson that much. I actually think they have a really good chance of doing that. A few other notables. USC's at 7.5. Another 7-win season potentially for Lincoln Riley and company. That would start to get a little bit uncomfortable out west. Kansas, in what might be a bounce-back season for Lance Leipold, they're sitting at 7.5. The Florida Gators, fresh off a breakthrough year where they found a franchise quarterback and they had a lot of young players that were contributing and that were brought along slowly. Florida broke through at the end of the year, and yet Vegas has their win total sitting at 6.5. That would actually be under the total that they finished with last year when they finished the regular season 7-5. So a fascinating thing to look at. I'm saying we're not going to go down. We're not going to go line by line. Just saying big picture takeaways. Clearly, Vegas isn't as confident in the top of college football as they once were just a few years ago. And then finally, I feel like if I were to poll people and to poll just your casual consumer of college football, not the hardcores, the casual consumer that likes to watch the games, that maybe isn't watching our show, but I think most people, they'll look at numbers and they'll just naturally lean towards the over. Oh, that team's going to be really good. I lean over. Oh, that team's really good. I'm going to lean over, which makes me think that Vegas kind of prices that in. They kind of know that people are bound to be optimistic in the offseason. So they price that in. So these numbers all might be skewed even a little higher than what reality might be, which is even a scarier thought because that means that we might have a 9-3 regular season team that wins the national championship. Could it happen? Absolutely. Would it surprise me? Absolutely not. That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. Continue to encourage all of you to like, to rate, and to subscribe to the show. Wherever you get the show, we really appreciate all of you that have supported us all throughout the season and that will continue to support us throughout spring and summer. I'm not calling it the off season. I'm calling it spring and summer. So for all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.